Welcome back once again to my YouTube channel where I share practical monitoring and evaluation and project planning and management. This is where you can learn to put into practice in your professionalism, either if you're a male consultant or a project manager. This is a channel for you to be, or any other aspiring male consultant or a student. This is the channel where you are to be. You can please like and share and subscribe to my channel. And thank you very much. So today we're covering the OECD/DAC evaluation criteria and standards. So what is the OECD? The OECD is that's an abbreviation, which is it means the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and it's an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. Their goal is to shape policies that foster prosperity, equality, opportunity, and well-being for all. And DAC is the Development Assistance Committee. The DAC evaluation criteria is based on five on the conception that evaluation is an assessment to determine the relevance and fulfillment of objectives, developmental efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability of efforts supported by aid agencies. That's the DAC criteria. It's based on five evaluation criteria conception, which is efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability of the development efforts or intervention by aid agencies. Purposes of evaluation: one is to account, which is accountability, to account for results achieved through the resources allocated to the development intervention, which is either donor-funded. These are basically donor-funded projects. And two is learning, to learn from the experience by understanding whether a development intervention has worked or not, or the reasons for its failure. We have categories of evaluations or reviews. One, we have the independent evaluations. These are decided by the oversight committee and are commissioned and managed by the evaluation officer and executed by external consultants. Then two, we have the external evaluations. These are decided upon by heads of divisions and commissioned or managed by CSE SECO officers, executed by external consultants. Then we have the internal reviews. These are decided by heads of department or divisions and executed by the program officers or the project manager himself. So what are the main types of evaluations? We've just looked at the categories of evaluations, where we have the independent evaluations, the external evaluations, and the internal reviews. Types. We have two main types of evaluation that can be classified according to the timing in the project cycle. One, we have the mid-term evaluation. This is undertaken during the implementation phase of a project or development intervention. So as you hear the name mid-term, it's taken between in the mid of the project intervention. Then we have the final evaluation, which is the end of project evaluation. This is undertaken at the end of the development intervention or project. Then we have the ex post evaluation. This is undertaken after a long or after the evaluation has been completed, after a long time. The evaluation, if maybe you've done a project and it was a 5-year project, so you can do an ex post evaluation after like 5 years after the project ended. So this is normally done after a long time has passed, when the project has been completed. Still, we have under types, we have evaluation mandated by a single donor. This is evaluation conducted by the donor agency And joint evaluation, this is evaluation jointly conducted by different donor agencies or partner organizations. Then we have what is actually the focus of evaluation, because the DAC criteria or the OECD criteria, as I mentioned earlier, focuses on evaluation and the principles you have to follow when you're doing your evaluation. So the focus of evaluation is normally on the process evaluation. This is the evaluation of the internal dynamics of the implementing organizations, their policy instruments, their service delivery mechanism, their management practices, and the linkages among these. So under process, you're just basically evaluating the internal dynamics or policies of the implementing organization, like their policy instruments. Yeah, you're analyzing and evaluating the policy instruments in relation to the project or development intervention, their service delivery mechanism, and their management practices. Yeah, linking them to the development intervention. Then we have the project evaluation. Here, evaluation of an individual project or development intervention is designed to achieve specific objectives with specified resources and implementation schedules, often within the scope of a broader program. So as mentioned, a program is a combination of projects, and a project is under a program. It's just an aspect of the program. So in a project evaluation, you're looking at evaluating whether the project met its specified objectives with the specified resources, and within whether it met its implementation timeline or schedule. Yeah, often within also the scope. Yeah, so just it's basically on the project whether it meets its objectives, working with this requested specified resources, and within the timeline they specified. Then you have the program evaluation. Here, this is an evaluation of a set of interventions measured to attain specific global, regional, country, or sector development objectives. So programs is basically bigger than the project, and it's mainly they're always towards attaining the specific global, regional, country objectives. Yeah, the sector development objectives. So here you're evaluating on a bigger perspective, either towards country objectives or regional objectives. Maybe a regional project, it may be a country project, it can be a worldwide project or a sector project. Yeah, that's program evaluation. Then you have country program evaluation. Here, evaluation is of one or more donors or agency portfolio of development interventions and assistance strategy behind them in a partner country. So here you may find that, as maybe you can see, Save the Children is around the world, in the UK, in the Malawi, in Kenya, Tanzania, all over. So when they're doing the evaluation, it's a country program evaluation. They're evaluating programs in that country. So that's what is program evaluation. So here, they will be doing country program evaluation of the country program in Uganda or the country program in Kenya, like that. It's specific to a country evaluation. Then you have thematic evaluation. This is evaluation of a selection of development interventions, all of which address specific development priorities that cut across countries, regions, or sectors. Yeah, so here in thematic, this is addressing just a specific development priority, but this development priority cuts across countries, regions, and sectors. For example, you can find out that a project or a program is targeting the SDG 1, which is a reduction in poverty, which is cutting across all regions and countries and sectors, mostly in Africa. Yeah, so may find that the thematic evaluation is under that, and each program is under that. It's contributing towards that SDG 1, and they will be evaluating based on that thematic area they've chosen here. So that's it on the focus of evaluation. Where I can do either process evaluation, project evaluation, or program or country program evaluation, or thematic evaluation. So what are the standards for evaluation? when you're doing evaluation? What standards are you supposed to consider or follow when you're doing evaluations of any development interventions based on the types of evaluation you're going to do, or which focus of evaluation you're going to actually handle or tackle? Yeah. One, we have utility, in that the evaluation is oriented to the information needs of the intended users of the evaluation. So information or the evaluation you're going to do, you have to make sure that the information you're going to collect or report on is actually information needed by its intended users, and it's information that they can also use. So that standard, you have to follow it, that this information, is it really needed and is it relevant? Can they actually use this information? Yeah, for the intended users or the beneficiaries on this evaluation. Then 2 is feasibility. The evaluation has to be conducted in a realistic, well-considered, diplomatic, and cost-conscious manner. Yeah, it has to be very realistic, that you're actually able to carry out this evaluation. You're actually going to meet all the stakeholders. You're going to get the findings. You're considering all people who are going to participate, that it's realistic to them. Also, considering the costs, that they are realistic and feasible. Yeah, so it has to be a feasibility evaluation, feasible evaluation. Then standard 3 is proprietary. Proprietary, the evaluation is conducted legally, ethically, and with due regard for the welfare of those involved in the evaluation, as well as those affected by the evaluations. Yeah, so your evaluation has to be legally and ethically conducted, and with due respect to the welfare of those involved. For example, mostly evaluations consider the counterfactual component when you're doing the evaluation. You're always comparing two groups. The one that has been participating in the development intervention, and the one which has not gained anything from the development intervention, and you're actually comparing which one is better off. So doing those evaluations, they have to be done with due respect of all those people that are engaged in the evaluation. So some of them you may find that they're experiments, and you need to actually get consents of those people who will be participating in that evaluation. So it's very crucial for you to follow the legal aspects of an evaluation and ethically do your evaluation. Then standard number 5 is accuracy. Number 4, is accuracy. The evaluation produces and disseminates valid and usable information. Yeah, so you have to make sure when you're doing your evaluation that your evaluation should be able to produce and disseminate valid, accurate, and usable information. I think that's very direct, that your information has to be valid and very usable and also accurate. Yeah. Evaluation criteria still is the DAC definition of the evaluation contains 5 criteria, where we have the relevance, the efficiency, effectiveness, sustainability, and impact. One, relevance is in the evaluation criteria, as I said, just once again, is we have 5 criteria that evaluation has to be relevant, effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability, and impact. Relevance, what do you mean by the relevance? This is the extent to which the objectives of the development intervention are consistent with the beneficiary requirement, country needs, global priorities, and partners and donor policies. Yeah. So just to explain this, that before you do your evaluation, you have to consider that the objectives, the extent to which the objectives of that project or development intervention are consistent with its beneficiary requirements and country needs, and global priorities and partners or donor agencies, that they actually meet There are requirements in the country they are operating in, that the object is actually addressing the needs of the beneficiaries, they're addressing the global priorities or feeding into the global priorities, and the partners and donor policies. So that's relevancy. What are the dimensions of relevance when you're looking at the relevance? Assessing the relevance of a development intervention requires to assess the extent to which it responds to the needs and is also consistent with the priorities, livelihood strategies, and the culture of the main stakeholders and beneficiaries. Relevance involves assessing the consistency of the intervention with the policies and priorities of the partner country. So, for example, maybe if your development intervention is under education, you have to make sure that its objectives are consistent with the policies and priorities of the education sector in Uganda. If you're running it in Uganda, if you're running it in Kenya, it has to be consistent with the policies and priorities. That means it's relevant to the country policies and priorities, or fitting into the frameworks of the country, the objectives or the SDGs of the country. Yeah, so that's the relevancy. Still under the dimensions of relevance, here we include looking whether the overall objectives of the intervention conform to the existing policies. That's I explained already. Whether this policy represents a priority for the partner country, for the intervention targeted to the administration, the extent to which the design of the intervention and its implementation take into account the actual functioning of the administrative system. You have to check all that. This also includes looking at the technical adequacy of the intervention in relation to the institutional environment, whether the advocacy is actually fitting into the institutional environment. And it also involves assessing consistency with other donor interventions, where there are no risk of incoherence or duplication. So you have to make sure that your intervention is not a duplication of the other donor or project intervention. Yeah. So that is it. That's it about relevance. Still under relevance, we have to do observation. And the key questions you can ask yourself is, are we doing the right thing? Yeah, in this project when you're assessing. Also, relevance has to be assessed in relation to the design and the implementation of the development intervention. So you have to assess looking at the design, how has the project designed, and how has it been implemented, whether it's actually relevant to the overall development interventions. Yeah, so given that government policies and priorities may change over time, the assessment of relevancy needs to take into account the changing environment. Some always pilot innovating development interventions may not be consistent with existing priorities and policies of the beneficiaries and the partner country or donor organization. So in this case, the evaluation still assess the extent to which this development intervention responds to a need. Yeah, here we've given an example that a development intervention may be an innovative development intervention, and it may not be consistent with the existing priorities or the policy of the beneficiaries or partner country or donor organization. But still, even if you find that intervention is not consistent with the existing priorities, you should still assess the extent to which that intervention responds to a need. Yeah. So in addition, or even more importantly, the evaluation must assess whether this innovation or innovative intervention can be replicated or expanded. This will be the ultimate test for its relevancy. So if you find that maybe the innovation is actually addressing the need, also assess can it be replicated or expanded. Then you find that the innovative intervention can actually be replicated and expanded or scaled up, then it's actually relevant, yeah, to the priorities and needs. Maybe, for example, you can give what innovative example. We've seen so many projects in online marketing. And yeah, there are innovative projects, so many, like online markets, online shopping carts. Yeah, and they are actually addressing a need in shopping online. And reducing the transportation costs for people, and making things accessible. So they are addressing a need, and we see that these projects can actually be replicated to other regions or other countries. But basing on the beneficiaries, they have to be like people who hold smartphones. So you have to assess, is this intervention actually relevant to this population, and can it be scaled up? That's outmeant our assessment of relevance of the intervention. Then number 2, we have the effectiveness. This is understood the criteria for the OECD, things you have to consider when you're doing your evaluation. Is evaluation effective? Or is the development assessing your development intervention? Has the development intervention being effective? Yeah. So effectiveness means the extent to which the development intervention's objectives were achieved. So when you're assessing effectiveness of a project, you assess the extent to which its objectives were achieved or are expected to be achieved, taking into account their relative importance. Under effectiveness focuses on assessing whether the intended results of the development intervention were achieved. So you assess that if the intended results of maybe we were implementing a WASH project, and our intended results was to have 9 out of 10 people in Kampala have access to safe and clean water. Then when we're assessing the effectiveness of that's our intended results, effectiveness of our project, the WASH project, we assess that we do actually achieve that 9 out of 10 access to safe and clean water. Yeah, if we achieved it, then the project or program was effective. Evaluating the effectiveness of an intervention involves understanding how the project contributed to these results, whether it was appropriately designed in relation to the expected results, what were the success factors that led to the achievement. So when you're assessing, you ask yourself all those questions. What were the success factors that led to achievement of maybe the intended result? What was the weight of the other external factors that contributed maybe to the intended results? Who are the beneficiaries of the intervention? You assess all that. It is so many other things. So it contributes to the institutional learning by making you understand what worked and under which conditions. So you know that if we achieve that 9 out of 10 people in Kampala have access to safe and clean water, we ask yourself how that worked and in which conditions did it work. Maybe we had national water covering all these people. Maybe there were boreholes dug in all these places. Yeah, you ask yourself what worked and which conditions led to the achievement of the intended result. Yeah. Effectiveness also aims at measuring the extent to which the objectives of the development intervention are being achieved, whether at output, outcome, or impact levels. So normally due to the difficulty of effectiveness at the impact level, and depending on the purpose of the evaluation, it may be decided to focus on the outputs and outcomes only when you're doing evaluation. So when you're assessing effectiveness of an intervention at output level, it requires you to examine the extent to which the project or program activities have taken place and produced the expected outputs. And at outcome level and impact levels, it requires a two-step approach where you measure the extent to which the objectives have been achieved, and also assess the extent to which the changes can be attributed to the development intervention or to external factors. So you said, I gave an example of our WASH, and we're saying maybe 9 out of 10 people in Kampala have access to safe and clean water, and that is our intended outcome. So to assess to what extent the changes maybe that contributed to that, we can say We can say that national water did the coverage, that if it has been a national water project, so we attribute that to national water. If there are other external factors, we can say that people have maybe water harvesting tanks in homes that has improved the access to safe and clean water. There have been other projects done by other implementing partners in availing water harvesting tanks in schools and what that has improved the success or led to achievement of the intended results. So that's how we assess effectiveness of outcome and the impact level is assessing the extent to which the objectives were achieved or have been achieved, and also assessing to which we can the extent to which you can attribute the changes to that development intervention. Yeah. Still under effectiveness, measuring effectiveness of an intervention requires some information which is always not given. It's therefore necessary to have a strategy to address the lack of information. The program may lack a clear description of expected outputs, outcomes, or impact. In this case, it's necessary for you as an evaluator to reconstruct the program logic of the intervention. Or data on a situation before or at the beginning of the development intervention may be missing, no baseline, no incomplete information. It may be possible in certain cases to reconstruct the data through document analysis or review and interviews, but this data may not be exhaustive or lack the necessary degree of precision. And sometimes you may find that data on a situation during implementation after completion of the development intervention may also be missing or of low quality or incomplete, especially at outcome and impact levels. So in this case, data collection may be integrated in the terms of reference for the evaluation and doing the evaluation. So if you find that data is missing on some of outcome or impact, you may need to collect that on that outcome. So you include that in your terms of reference. Then you have efficiency. Efficiency is a measure of how economically resources or inputs, funds, time, expertise are converted to results. So here you're measuring how economically the results achieved were also attained efficiently. Like you're measuring the resources that were used vis-a-vis what was achieved. Yeah. So efficiency is a relation between resources allocated to a project and the results achieved. These are usually measured at output levels, normally outputs. That's why you measure efficiency. So you can say maybe this road was constructed, maybe the Entebbe Express Highway was constructed and they use these billions of money. So in efficiency, evaluating out of the output that Entebbe Express Road was constructed with these billions of money. Is it really efficient? Does the cost that was incurred reflect the output that we see or was given? So measuring and understanding. If it's not, you state that it's not actually efficient. Yeah. If for some certain projects or programs, some standards may exist, under efficiency, maybe you can have in some projects, you may have a standard cost for maybe 1 kilometer of road, so you can use that to measure many other development interventions or models. So in this case, some criteria include cost of expertise, experts, overhead, administrative costs, must be identified and made explicit in the evaluation report when measuring the efficiency of the intervention. So when you're measuring efficiency of the intervention, you also have to consider those costs, the consultative costs, the overhead costs, the administrative fees. All these contribute to an output. These are silent costs, but they contribute to attainment of any output. So you have to consider those costs when you're measuring efficiency of the project. And finally, we have sustainability. Here we're measuring whether the development intervention can continue even after assistance or donor funding has ended. So is the intervention sustainable? Yeah, can you look at the long-term effects of this development intervention? You're also assessing to the extent to which the effects of the development intervention will continue after withdrawal of the donor support. So it's kind of assessing that if we achieved these results, can they continue even 5 years after the project has ended and there is no funding? Yeah. So it focuses on rather on the effect of the development intervention rather than the intervention itself. Yeah, that's under sustainability. Sustainability is of maybe, for example, you can see of a rehabilitated water supply facility. We'll assess the extent to which beneficiaries continue to have access to clean water after some time, or the donor support has been completed. So it's still the same example if we see a WASH project. And we see maybe that we have installed boreholes in these schools. So after the project has ended and the donor has left, after 5 years, will we be able to continue to see that schools have access to safe and clean water with the same boreholes that were constructed? So that's sustainability. You're assessing the continuation of an intervention even after donor support has ended. Or have they been dispatched, or they're not being taken care of? There is no more access. You have to assess all those factors. So in assessing sustainability of an intervention, different aspects of time you can consider when you're assessing. Yeah, normally the time frame apply when assessing sustainability depend on the intervention. If it's a capacity building program, vis-a-vis infrastructure rehabilitation, its time frame for assessing sustainability may vary. There are different aspects of sustainability, including financial sustainability. Also, when you're looking at sustainability, you have to consider these different aspects. Yeah, you have to consider financial sustainability, institutional sustainability, whether the institution can continue to operate even after the donor funding has elapsed or the donor has left, whether they will still have finances to operate even after or sustain the projects even after the donor has left, or you have to put mitigating measures or measures onto to sustain the finances. All those things have to consider under sustainability. Technology sustainability, if it's a technology product or what, can be able to be sustained even after the donor has left. All the other different aspects have to be assessed when looking at sustainability of an intervention. So to a large extent, sustainability depends on the partner country priorities and ownership of the projects relating to the objectives being pursued. Also, assessing sustainability of ongoing activity implies focusing on the likelihood that effects of an intervention will be maintained over time. I mentioned that earlier. It was also difficult to provide a positive answer at an early stage before the intervention is done or completed. So it's very pertinent to assess sustainability of an intervention after the intervention has been completed. Yeah, it may not be reasonable to focus on identifying any factors that may put the risk of sustainability of the intervention. Then we have lastly the impacts. Impact here we look at positive and negative primary, secondary, long-term effects produced by a project or development intervention, directly or indirectly, intended or unintended effects. This involves measuring the totality of effects brought by a project or development intervention, including intended, unintended, positive or negative, short-term or long-term effects. Yeah, it's different from measuring effectiveness. Effectiveness focuses on measuring the intended results and positive results. Here we measure the unintended, intended, long, short time, positive or negative effects of a program. As I said, unintended effects are those that were not planned as a result of the development intervention. It can be positive or negative. Yeah. Assessing impact is particularly difficult. Identifying unexpected or negative effects of an intervention may require some additional research. Baseline data on unexpected or negative effects is usually non-existent, so causality may even be more difficult to explain or establish. As I said earlier, it's mostly times very hard to assess the impact because you have to identify the expected, unexpected, or negative or positive effects of an intervention, and these may require you additional time or additional research to establish all these factors. Yeah. So impact evaluation is a more in-depth assessment looking at the positive, negative, intended, long-term, short-term effects of intervention. It is expected that only few impact evaluations will be undertaken on the development interventions. As such, evaluations require important resources for their design and understanding. So in general, impact evaluation should be considered when there are some questions over the adequacy of the instrument used, when there is a strong pressure to assess the totality of all the effects of the intervention, positive, negative effects, unintended or intended, or when such an evaluation supports the development of a methodology for the assessment of this type of development interventions. That's when you can do impact, when all those conditions are present. But otherwise, you may not have to do impact evaluations. Most evaluations end at the outcome evaluations. So that has been it on the OECD or OECD/DAC criteria. Thank you again. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. See you. Thank you.